Hi, I'm Rob, and this is Skullborn. In this video, I will be explaining how to create an armor set based on images or references that you can find on the internet. So when I create my armor set, I always try and research first what am I gonna make. So a good place to start from would be to go on Google and find out, what the thing that you want to do looks like. For example, in this case, I'm taking inspiration from one of the most popular Transformer characters, Starscream. Now, being a Transformers fan, I really want to find some reference images that gives me a chance to see what um, what I'm gonna make. For example, in this case, there is even a special, let's say, outfit that Starscream has when he was crowned the Emperor of all the Decepticons. But, for the sake of creating the armor set, we're gonna go simpler and use a classic G1 image as reference, or maybe two, and we can start making our armor set. As you can see, there is plenty of choice on Google Images. You can find anything you want with the style that you want, and I don't know, maybe opening new tabs and keep it there while you're working on it so that you can always go back and look at it while you're referencing and creating your armor set. So yeah, this is a way of a few pictures that give us an overview of the face as well. So next we go into Skullborn and we start preparing the helmet. And as you can see, you need to have already the materials before you start making your armor, obviously. It's not unusual to start making an armor set then realizing you don't have enough. But, don't be worried about it, because in the game you can complete partially your armor set, start using it already anyway, and then go on making whatever you're making when you have all the materials that you want. In this case, I always create armor sets based on mithril armor because it gives you the best statistics in the game so far, or at least the best defense. And I'm just removing stuff that I think is gonna be in the way of what we're making. So I don't want to remove everything because I want to keep a structure to build on. But I want to get rid of all of the slopes and bits and bobs that are gonna be replaced by what is gonna make the head of our character. Keep in mind that even if the final result doesn't look blue like the mithril armor that we're making, it doesn't really matter. You can add as much material as you like and it still counts as mithril armor. So in our case, we're gonna use some iron to make the outer layer of the helmet, and then we're gonna worry about what to do for the face. Sometimes you will notice I'm gonna stop moving because probably I'm gonna go back to the reference images and go back to check what shape I want to make the head. And as you can see, I'm removing a lot more stuff just to make sure that I have the shape that I want. Spoiler alert, I'm actually gonna come back and edit this head later because it turned out a bit too big compared to the rest of the body. But as you can see here, I'm starting to place some iron, which is obviously a darker color block, and I'm trying to use, let's say, clever placement of the areas to try and save time as well. So that would come with a little bit of experience, but as you can see, even just a one block in that corner allowed me to cover the entire head area without having to resort to, let's say, placing too many lines one by one. I decided not to speed up this video because I really wanted to show the process, so bear with me. I hope it's not too boring, but at the same time it should really show some of the, let's call them, techniques that I use to build the armor, and you know, maybe help you with whatever armor set you're making. So this is obviously the side of the helmet, and something that I do a lot is count and make sure that everything is symmetrical, that is supposed to be symmetrical. So, you know, take your time, count once, twice, make sure that all the blocks are in the right place, make sure that it's symmetrical, and as you see here, I'm even checking if it's the same length. Another thing you shouldn't worry too much right at the start is making things that look 100% nice. Give the rough shapes at the start, and then you can go back and refine them with other type of blocks like slopes or cylinders. Right at the start you want to give the structure and then build on top of that. So you are starting to make what we'll call the ears, and as you can see, it's not something that, let's say, I decided at the start how to make, but you start fiddling around and see what it looks like, and deciding actually I want to add more at the back of the head before I go on with this, and then finally decide, you know, how deep those quotes ears are gonna be, how large they're gonna be, and all that kind of stuff. And then sometimes I throw in a curveball and I start doing details before I finish. Like here I decided I'm just gonna do the curved bits here because otherwise it's not gonna look right when I try and check the look. As I said, the process is not to fixed in place. It needs to be organic. It needs to come from the image reference that you're using, or if you're making from your imagination, then of course it's gonna be even more interesting to see while you're placing your blocks what it looks like, if you like it, if you don't like it, if it looks the same as what you imagined it was gonna look like when you were thinking to place those blocks, and all that kind of stuff. So at this point I was checking the size of this thing and thinking, maybe I went a bit too big, but nonetheless I was thinking, no, trust the process, start making the face. But then, yeah, while it looked alright so far, once I started making the face, it started looking a bit more ridiculous. And then again, details. So in this case, instead of going on with the face, I decided to go on with the details on the front by adding a little bit more bumps, let's call them. And then a little look at the back as well. The skull is a bit too exposed. Let's leave it like that for now. And then the face. The face is always interesting because we have some image references as well, but at the end of the day, we are dealing with blocks and we need to hide that original skull behind it. And what you can see here is one of my favorite tricks, because while the other blocks can be more difficult to obtain, wood is fairly easy to obtain, especially now the trees regrow. So I use wood as a structure to build bulk, like in this case, maybe even a bit too much. But I'm preparing the foundation upon which I'm gonna create the mask that's gonna cover the face. And then you just cover the face with stone. Start thinking, do I want to have colored eyes or just leave the original eyes from the skull? Yeah, that wasn't a great look. But as I said, the process is organic, it's not fixed in stone. So at this point I decided that I want to see all the way through to the black background and leave that depth. But I ended up deleting too much, so here is another trick. If you zoom in and go through the skull model or other parts of the armor that are already or still available there, you can see through. So you can go and see those blocks that otherwise are not visible. And then you can either delete them, edit them, change them, do whatever you need. So now I'm placing some stone slopes to make the face look a bit better, and use the original eyes from the skellies as the actual eyes for Starscream. And as I said, the wood at the back, it's a structure, it's not meant to be left there, so at some point later we will remove it. So more slopes to give a bit more dimension to the face. It's not gonna be, you know, flat. We need to create additional details on the face now. So it's gonna be a nose. Then we need to add the chin. To say that we are not covering the skull enough. Then we want to make the chin bigger. Yeah, this was not looking good so far, so I needed to add another layer to the face. So this started to cover the actual skull a bit more. And then I decided to give it more eyebrows to cover that top part of the skull. Somehow I ended up with a very worried looking Starscream, and I will change the eyebrows later as well. So we lost the nose a little bit because obviously we had another layer on top, so let's give this thing a nose at some point. More details, rounding up the face. Something else that we have to notice is while you're editing your armor, the colors are gonna be very bright, but once you finish in editing your armor, you will see that a lot more shadows will be applied to it, and all of these shapes and angles and things that I'm placing that currently are not very visible because everything looks very flat and very bright. They will be highlighted by natural shadows from the game engine. So again, it's one of those things where you have to trust the process and see what it looks like once you're actually completing the armor. So yeah, here is all the wooden structure getting deleted. We don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that we don't show any of this. So, and there was more wood that I wanted to place probably, which is why it's taking a while. Did not realize that I had placed that much. I only wanted the, let's say, the surface layer behind the face to be there, not this whole thing. But it's gone. Beautiful, almost. So now we're gonna create the mouth, and for the lips I just use slopes in a way that kinda create that, let's say, opening, and again the shadows that will come. Quick look from all the directions to see if there is anything left to do. And this is where I'll go back and think, actually, I want to add more details on these ears. So I create another frame. And we get some platinum slopes to create the grid in the ears. So we're gonna do the same on the other side. Now we know what we're gonna do, so usually the second time goes a bit faster. And voila. So yeah, at this point I look at this and think it just looks like a grandma with funky hair, but as you see, once you complete the armor piece, all of these shadows kick in and really highlight the face, shape. Um, but yeah, it's still not as proportionate as I thought it was gonna be at the start. I think the face needs to be a bit more square looking overall. Instead, it's a bit too oblong on the sides. But yeah, that's the helmet done for now. So let's move on to the chest. So again, I already have all the material that I need to actually start creating the armor. So I'm gonna call it again Starscream. And here is another trick. Now, if I were to work on the shoulders and try and make it, let's say, more detailed and more accurate the way I wanted it, the central armor piece is actually quite in the way of certain things. So the first thing I usually do, I remove all of this material, even if later on I might still need it, or in this case I didn't need it because we're gonna use a different color. And at that point, now you have access to the top of the shoulders, the bottom, and the neck without anything in the way. So before we go on with anything at the side, actually, this big head is in the way. So what can we do? Take the helmet off, and at least it's not in the way anymore. Go back to edit your armor. once you actually click on the right thing. And then we are back into the game, but now the head is not in the way anymore. So we want to make the arms, but I'm gonna do the top white part first, and I'm gonna leave the cannon on the side and the actual blue part of the arm for later, and you will see why. So before I start, I make sure I have a good stock of platinum again and start removing bits, because the shoulders are gonna be fairly square, so there's not much, let's say, detail to this other than making a big square, well, rectangle. So again, try and save as much time as possible by being clever in what you do. Remove the bits that are in the way, and then you might say later on that things are either too big or too long, but we will see later. Right now, we are just gonna place all of this platinum here, create 2 boxes as shoulders, and be happy about it. So the other thing, as usual, is symmetry. Make sure that things are as big as they are on the other side. Same dimensions, same actions. So instead of making the whole arm, just make the shoulder and then worry about the arm later. Another thing you can do is, if you're gonna cover some areas, then you can save some materials by removing the blocks they're gonna be hidden anyway. So again, here I'm just gonna do this, and now instead I'm just gonna use these wooden blocks as a structure to hide away, and they're gone. So yeah, pretty much the sleeves are done, and we're gonna worry about the arms later. Quick check what it looks like once the shadows kick in. I mean, we are nowhere near done, but it's always worth keeping an eye on it. And again, go back to your reference as much as you need. So in this case, I'm pretty sure I checked again what I needed to do and decided actually the sleeves are not long enough. Add another layer, and then we can start with the chest. So the other thing again is use as much wood as you need to, hide away behind all the nice stuff that you want to show. So I started making this central fuselage of the airplane that makes up the center of the armor, and I added a little bit more wood to the areas that are gonna be hidden away anyway. And finally we can start creating the bust. So these are gonna be the vents looking things on his chest. There's gonna be more wooden structure around it. I decided to go with copper because it's more readily available than redwood at the moment. If I had more redwood, probably I would change it, but I have to say the end result is not bad, even with this orange copper. there is something else that needs to be taken in consideration. What materials are available, how easily you can source them, and can you compromise? So here's another moment where I went back to check the proportions of the chest, and I needed more orange down here to finish the chest piece, but not on top of the platinum, so some blocks are gone. A bit more, then the sides. So finally we can start looking at the sides of the abdomen area. Decide to remove some wood. Starts looking more like Starscream. So another challenge is we don't have round pieces, we don't have, you know, I didn't have available wooden slopes either. So how do I make this look round? And this is where you can use negative space as well. So effectively, instead of having wooden slopes, I'm using the platinum slopes to make the wood look round-ish, at least as best as we can. So here we go. We got a shape that is familiar with what Starscream looks like on his body. I started adding copper down here, but later I will regret it and you will see that I'll change it again. But yeah, now we got the back to do. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the back, you're gonna be the only one that sees it most of the time. So, from one point of view, you can say I can do what I want. The other hand, you kinda want it to look good because you're gonna be staring at it a lot. So we're still adding copper here, make sure that we're not seeing wood, making sure it's symmetrical where it needs to be. Removing more material where it's not needed. Some finishing touches. And again, make sure to hide all the blocks that you're not supposed to show, even if it's in obscure places like that. Now, Starscream has those shoulder vents. They're supposed to be from the airplane mode, and I was sure that nobody is gonna see them because of how big the face was, and I still decided to make them anyway because, as I said, I'm gonna be the one that sees them anyway. And if they're not there, I know that there's not gonna be there, and you know, the OCD kicks in. So once again, more wood to create a structure. Make sure you count everything, make sure that it's as big as you think it should be, and then even if it's not, you can change it later. But that's what's beautiful about this game. You can build, do, undo as much as you like. So yeah, once again, the process is not set in stone. I'm not really using any reference for this area underneath, but again, I'm gonna be the only one that looks at it, and I just want to make sure that it's not completely garbage. Um, so now we are adding some iron for the vents area to make it look like it's got some depth to it. Finally, we start the angled area with some slopes. Get rid of some wood that we don't need anymore. And again, as you notice, I just done something that I knew I was gonna do anyway. So do it now while you got the right block selected instead of waiting later to do it. So at this point I was fairly satisfied with this, just adding iron all the way to the top, then realizing that there is something not quite right. Adding more details anyway. Yeah, I think at this point I realized that there was a column of copper too much. So let's get rid of it. Then we go back to the slopes. Always checking both sides. So yeah, if there was any other area where I wanted to use slopes, I start adding them. Again, this was a mistake to make the bottom part start already there, because you will see when I start doing the legs that it gets to be too big, too much. But yeah, chest piece is practically done. Go back to put the head on and finally realize that it's ridiculous. Um, it's not bad looking, but it's just there's something odd about the proportions. I'm gonna end up keeping some of the size of the head anyway. It gives it a little bit of a super deformed kind of look. But at least it's not a level of like Funko Pop figuring kind of deformation of the head. Um, so yeah, we are finally at the legs. Yeah, that's where the side. Oh, the waist is a bit high. So I'm gonna start anyway on the legs and yeah, remove some parts and start covering in copper. Um, the top part, the legs, is fairly easy. Again, the design of Transformers is fairly clean and squarish, let's say. So it press very well to port into Skullborn um, very easily, let's say. So here I'm just creating, let's call it the crotch area, adding a little bit more blocks, covering up any material area that I don't want to show. And in some cases you want to delete and replace, in other cases you just want to cover. It really depends on, like, obviously the look that you're going for and how bulky things need to be. And in this case, I don't want the upper legs to be too bulky. I want them to stay within a certain width because the bottom, let's say, boots area is gonna be bigger looking. So we need to have somewhere to go. If this is already 5 blocks wide, I'm gonna create something atrocious looking for the feet. So again, some blocks get deleted, others simply get covered. The legs are pretty much all platinum, other than some details in the lower part of the leg. Something I always do for the knees area when I want the armor to be fairly well connected, I just go and add an extra layer at the bottom here to make sure, even if they overlap a bit with something else, it looks better than having the top legs floating around compared to the bottom. So here we go again with some wood, creating additional bulk for what's gonna be the shin. And then add in some platinum already. So while the top part was 3 blocks wide, this is gonna be 5 blocks wide. And then, yeah, it's gonna create that effect of boot over the top leg. At this point I decided I was already gonna create some detail here with some iron for the shin. Again, there's really no rules in making armor. You can go and do whatever you want. Um, Sometimes it saves time to do details right away. Other times you want to see the shape first and then decide what details you're gonna place. But in this case, we got some decent shins. So again, we don't want these blocks, and instead we cover everything in platinum. Then I decided I wanted the shin guards to be bigger. Remove some blocks that are not gonna be needed anymore. I mean, nobody's gonna know that there's empty space behind there, right? So again, the back of the legs is really up to you what you want to do. You can use blocks that you don't really, let's say, need if you're running out of a particular block, or you can create a motif that, again, you're gonna be seeing the most. So I like to create some detail on the back of the leg anyway, to make it more interesting to look at while I'm playing. So initially I thought, oh, I kinda like leaving the meter here. But then no, I changed my mind. And instead, I placed some iron and I created this calf detail, let's say. And then I realized that I didn't really like the bottom half to be black. So I went back to platinum and cover it up. So at this point I was satisfied with the lower body, but now I was bothered by that high waist from the upper body. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna finish this part of the lower body and complete the edit, and yeah, you can see it kinda looks like it's got a diaper on. But again, we can edit it, we can change it, we can fix the design as many times as we like. So in this case, not only I wanted to lower the white part, but I decided to increase the fuselage area. And looking back at the designs, like the reference images, I could have done a bit more aggressive. Like the fuselage sometimes goes further down and covers the crotch area a little bit. But, you know, I'm happy. It looks close enough to the original. So yeah, adding some more details, making it look more like the top of an airplane, adding more slopes, and we're done. So yeah, actually we're not done. We need to do the back. As always, the back is what you look at while you're playing, so make sure you're happy with it before you move on. So there is a bit of skull head showing as well. If I remember well, I went back and added more iron to hide away all of the skull area that was on show at the back. But so far, so good. So yeah, more details on the lower legs. There was this blue area that we're supposed to have, and once I removed the platinum one, there was already blue underneath, so I decided, why not? Again, adding layers like that adds shadows to your build, let's say, to your armor. So having something embossed like that adds a bit more interest to your armor. Now, something to consider for the feet is that somehow they're not quite centered. So what I usually do is I add a fourth block row on one side and add the other one on the other side. So now they look more symmetric. I shortened the feet as well because we didn't need them to be that long. And instead I'm gonna add the heel. Now, on the original design, it has some jet propulsor as some sort of heels. So I'm gonna do the best I can and create a round shape with some slopes sideways down here. And that's good enough for me. So started making the heel on the other side. Making sure you count, making sure everything is the same. Symmetry. Again, where it's needed, making sure it's symmetrical. So now we got the heel. I'm gonna start working on the top of the foot, which is really at a strong angle, and yes, it's gonna somehow hide that detail we created, but more wood to create structure, more slopes. Actually realized later that this part could have had some darker details at the center of the foot, but I don't care, it's fine. It looks alright. So here again, using those close cameras to see things that otherwise would be more difficult to see. Something else that I haven't mentioned yet. So when you drag the mouse, at the moment, sometimes the green area that shows you where you're placing stuff glitches out a little bit, but it's not gone. So trust that when you go and click with your mouse, you're gonna end up placing something from where you started placing up to the area where you selected. And sometimes it doesn't happen as often, but it happens also when you're deleting. But it happens more often when you're adding blocks. So if your green area disappears, trust it, it's still there. You just cannot see it. So yeah. In the meanwhile, I started removing the side of the face because it was too big, it was out of proportion. So before I went on with other details, I decided I'm gonna shave off a little bit of this head. So kinda looks like we are doing a brain operation or something on Starscream. And it is a bit painful to see all of that time spent on making the face go removed, but you know, we want to be able to show off this armor to other people, so we don't want it to look totally ridiculous. So yeah, we got the side panel back on. Other side. Trying to look and trying to decide whether I want another layer or not. Maybe finally happy with what I'm looking at. Maybe not. Start removing some rows. Removing the material and replacing it with iron. Removing some more blocks to create a bit more roundness to the face. Starting with the ears again. And again, cross check, measure, make sure it's symmetrical. I mean, I managed to show away 2 rows per side from the face. It wasn't a massive change or improvement, but good enough that made it look better, not as goofy. And I'm gonna apply some changes to the actual face area as well, as you will see in a wee while. So we are back to making those details on the ears. Add in some frame. Again, there isn't really a rule on when I change a shape. I just go by how I feel in the moment. But yeah, this was the outside of the face. And then I didn't like the actual shape of the face itself. As I said, the eyebrows looked like he was depressed. And it was a bit too round as well. I wanted it to be more square. So I ended up adding the stone blocks again, but without the slopes on the main face. And then making the eyebrows more aggressive. Using that negative space of the eye to make it look more menacing. And yeah, swapping slopes on the wheel, adding that angry eyebrow, and yeah, better than it was for sure. You still cannot see the shoulders from the front, but you know, it works. So now we got, oh yeah, we didn't do the back. And then I noticed that there was a hole here. Yeah, I don't know how I managed to create that. So yeah, the ears needed to be a bit bigger actually. So that needed some care. Some more slopes. Slopes are a funny one to place in a row. They work only in vertical position or horizontal. No, the other way around. They work in a horizontal position or vertical. So yeah, that was a bit more of the head done. And now, yeah, let's cover that up. Come on. So again, if you're running out of blocks, just, you know, delete some of the blocks that you placed before, and then, you know, nobody's gonna see the empty areas inside. And then I decided, well, what if I add a backdrop kind of thing, so that instead of looking through and seeing just black at the end. Let's make it copper, which looked better like while I was placing it here, but once you finish the helmet, the shadows kinda hide there anyway. But I know it's there. So yeah, so let's say we have done the easy part so far, because it gets more complicated when it comes down to the right arm, because we need to make the weapons, and then the left arm, because we don't have a weapon that we can make for it. So what's gonna happen is that once I created the first arm, in this case I'm gonna start from the cannon, I'm gonna see the proportions of the right arm and then somewhat replicate it on the left arm. But you will see later why it's a problem. Now, for the, let's call it ranged weapon, there was only one choice for Starscream. I mean, Starscream comes with two cannons on his shoulders anyway, but obviously the game is not going to be able to use them. But whenever, or at least most of the times, the Megatron transformed into his gun mode, it was Starscream that used it. So again, wood to create some structure, and then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create the arm that is the real arm for Starscream, and then I'm gonna do a gun in his hand, which will look like Megatron when it transforms into a gun. So that's why when I was creating this custom part, I called it Starscream Megatron. Now I started covering up all the wooden area. I wasn't entirely sure about the proportion of the arm, so once I got to this stage it started looking a bit ridiculous. So that's why I shaved away a level and covered it up with Metro. The elbow part, again, you don't want to go too deep depending on the shape of the elbow and depending on the shape of the arms. In this case, G1 characters again are very boxy, so you just want to go with rectangles and making sure that they don't overlap too much, but you don't also want to see gaps when they start moving around. The other thing to keep in mind is what is the upside, like where is the gun gonna be, where are the fingers gonna be. In the case of the cannon, the upside is like the way the cannon was, so effectively the sights, let's call them, that existed before on the cannon indicate where the upside is. So right now what I'm gonna do before I go on, I place, well, I placed some iron because I wanted to create a bit of distinction between the arm and the hand. But we will get back to this as well. So with the blocks, you can kinda cheat and just, create the fingers in this serrated clasp. Um, doesn't have to show the actual fingers. I could have used some cylinders, for example, to create the illusion of the round fingers, but I didn't have them at hand and I didn't think it really mattered. So these are the first fingers, and then I'm gonna create the thumb. And the other thing to consider is that I'm gonna use, let's say, the same proportions also to create the sword. So at this point I realize, oh, I forgot to check where's the upside. So I just placed that wood on top to mark where it was gonna be. The other thing I wanted to check was the proportions, and I was not quite happy. It looked a bit too big compared to how I wanted it to be. So I ended up shimming away some blocks. Shooting test, because obviously it's already a cannon, so even if it doesn't look like it, you can shoot from the index finger. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But here we go, going back to removing the arm, shaving away some blocks, and making sure we are happy with the overall look. Decided that it was this side that needed to get shaved. Some blocks. Yeah, figuring out if I was happy with the dimensions now. So effectively, the shoulder was the same proportion that I ended up with here, so I think it was the right call to change it. Back to the hands, same technique. Fingers, fingers. I actually ended up changing the way the thumb looked because I think it was a bit too big. And the only regret is that I didn't create an index finger that could have gone, let's say, on the trigger of the gun, but they're robots. Probably they don't even need to press the trigger to shoot. Probably. So yeah, I was happy with the arm. I wanted to maybe add a little bit more to the elbow, making sure that, you know, like I said, things connect instead of just being floating in the air. And yeah, you know, better looking arm. So now that I got the arm proportion nailed, it was time to create the left arm. Now, the problem with the left arm is that it's not going to move together with your character motions. But the compromise here is that let's not care about the motions. Let's care about when you take those juicy screenshots. So the structures that I'm building here is not following the arm the way it's extended in the T shape. But what I learned is that when it's in a resting position, our skeleton likes to bend the arms slightly. So what you're gonna see here is that that wooden structure is kinda sorta in the right place where it needs to be. It's not long enough to cover the fingers, for example, but you know, we're gonna have the hand built the same way that I built it for the gun to cover the fingers. So going back to the main armor, and yeah, we need to start placing some meter. Obviously this is gonna be a bit funny looking as well, but you know, it is what it is. So added some more wood because we want it to be fire wide. We don't want to waste other more precious material for it. Cover up, cover the front. Then of course those little gaps that we can see, I'm gonna cover it with some slopes just to give the impression that we are bending the arm, even if in theory it's a metal block and it shouldn't bend that way, but you know, it is what it is. So it was at this point I think that I realized that I didn't leave space for the elbow narrower bit, so I went back to do it. And yeah, always count the length of the arm and where is it going. And then I realized that it was a bit too big, uh, slightly. So I decided to recreate, let's say, the end bit where the arm was and just get rid of that block line. So finally, we get to the hand. Now in this case, the hand, if you remember, it was just resting, facing the front of the body. So I'm gonna leave it, let's say, in a clenched position, but still facing the front. So in this case, because it's not holding the gun, I made it a bit shorter. Then the thumb is gonna be sideways. Here we go. We got a clench first. And even if you see inside, you're gonna be looking at iron that creates that illusion of the shadow inside the fist. And there we go. Again, it's a bit funny looking, but this is the closest thing you can get to have a proper left arm. So the other way you can do is you can make sure your designs have, say, short sleeves, so you can still customize the top part of the shoulder that is attached to the armor. But when it comes down to the the forearm, then you're gonna be fine. So here I went back to look at the designs for when Megatron transformed into a gun. I found references from the action movie that wasn't so clear about the design of the gun. And I saw somebody art that actually had just the outlines. They actually helped me create the one that I use for the armor set. So again, references can help you a lot realize what you want to create, and you know, you don't have to think about it too much. So this is the handle or whatever you call it on a gun. I'm not familiar with guns. So apologies to the more gun estimators in our groups that will be pulling their hair out from their head for me calling in it whatever it is. And here I start giving it a shape that possibly is not gonna be the final shape, but just to get the proportions of what the gun, the body of the gun is gonna look like. Um, I believe Megatron was supposed to turn into a Walther P-30A, which is a particular gun from World War II, I believe, but somehow has accessories that I don't think the gun ever had in real life, including a black silencer at the front, a big scope on top, and some sort of armrest that I will create underneath the arm. So here I'm creating the barrel of the gun somehow. I realized at some point that I probably needed iron cylinders, and I thought I didn't have it in my inventory, but turned out that I did. So I could have saved myself a trip to my base. But yeah. So you start making the shape more or less of the gun. It's got a rounder bit at the front on the barrel, then it's got a squarish bit where the scope is gonna attach, and another rounder bit at the back. That is my interpretation of what this gun should have looked like. I wasn't so sure about the scope. It looked not quite good, but I go back and forward again in an organic way to see what it looks like, what I'm happy with. If it looks close enough to the source material that I'm using, or what I want it to look like. Yeah, this is me cutting through to the bit where I realized that actually I do have the iron cylinders. So that's the scope. Add in some more details. Again, it's not 100% accurate, but it gives you an idea of what this should have looked like. Then the silencer as well, the servos and runners. Oh, yeah, the cylinders sometimes don't place in the same direction that is indicated by the green preview. But nothing that we cannot resolve with removing them and placing them again. So I'll be more details around the silencer to make it look a bit more round. Then I think I decided that I didn't like those two blocks at the bottom. And place the slope. And voila. So I needed to add the armrest, whatever you want to call it, at the bottom. So a little bit more iron and that's it. Yeah, that's long enough. So here we go. Megatron in gun mode. But it would be Megatron without the Decepticon insignia. Which obviously I cannot recreate in such a small detail, but the best I could do was to place two Mitras lobes to kinda represent it on both sides. And then again, cross check, make sure it's symmetrical. And voila! Megatron in gun mode. So now we got left to create a melee weapon, and I left out the wings on purpose because I didn't want them to be in the way of all of this blocks placing and calculating and evaluating the proportions and all this kind of stuff. But I'm quite happy so far about what I've done with the rest of the body, so I was ready for the next step. Now, Starscream doesn't really use swords, but I know in the Transformer lore that there was this sword that was made from three smaller robots that are airplanes, and I thought it was fitting for him to have that as a sword. So as you can see, we have to remove the entire cannon, which comes with the upper arm, the lower arm, sorry. So I'm gonna create the Star Saber, and yeah, this is an axe. So let's get rid of the axe. Let's get rid of most of the handle, and then we can start building the arm again using wood blocks. So you want to come up all the way to the elbow again. Make sure that you have the same size of the arm. So we're gonna have all of that be our structure. Then we start covering material as usual. So of course we need to leave space to still create the hand that goes around the handle for the sword. Not really to worry about the lower arm showing at the moment here. At the end of the day, we can do as much as we can to hide it, but you know, that's it. So I think at this point I realized that the arm was not big enough, and then I need to add another layer. But I have enough material not to worry too much about covering up everything. Or maybe not. Let's remove that material. Let's not waste resources. So here we go. Recreate the inside of the hand, and then the fingers. And then finally we can start thinking about working on the actual sword. So the interesting thing about this sword is that it's still gotta look like a sword, but at the same time it's made out of three airplanes crashed together. So I followed the design again from the reference, but you know, because it's such small details, you cannot put everything in it. So I tried as best as I could to recreate the sword. So I had some stone cylinders stored away that I decided to use for this. And the handle didn't really have a bottom part to it, so I ended up just leaving it with a stone cylinder. And then it took me a few times going back and forward to look at the reference on this one, because again, it wasn't something that I was totally familiar with, and I wanted to make sure that it looked okay. I think I also realized at the end that maybe I should have changed the orientation of the sword to make it look like it was gonna swing, um, let's say on the flat side of the sword, but it doesn't really matter. All the elementals, stone blocks, and trees get killed anyway. And it still looks cool. So this is the bottom part that is supposed to be a space shuttle that has the tip opened to attach to the next airplane. So I decided I wanted to give it a little bit of roundness, and I used this pole in the middle to give myself some sort of center to understand how tall I wanted that airplane to be to a certain extent. The total sword is not that massive in size actually. Just start placing slope bits to make it look more like a space shuttle. But at the same time it needs to look like a sword. So yeah. And then at this point I added these bits because it was supposed to show some sort of mechanism inside that was holding the two halves of the tip of the space shuttle open, kind of thing. So hopefully you will see in a moment what it actually ended up looking like. And here we go. So now I can look at the references to start looking at how to make the next, let's say, airplane that is part of the sword. And I didn't want to use platinum again because I thought it was gonna look too much all the same. So instead I'm gonna use some stone because, yeah, why not? Airplanes can be made of stone. So the next airplane, it's somewhat some kind of normal airplane, like a, I don't know, like an Airbus, like a like an airplane that you may have seen in an airport kind of thing. But while it's got its wings upside down, let's say, it's facing downwards. The tip of the airplane, it's folded back on itself. So effectively, what I'm trying to recreate here is the tip of the plane being folded, and then, I don't know, the rest of what this looks like. So yeah, more metal poles to give me an idea of the length that I want to create. Then there is some slopes to continue the fuselage. And as usual, check the references, check what it looks like. All of these angles are gonna look better once you have completed, let's say, the editor mode. And these are the wings. The wings add blue color to it. And they had this initial thinner shape, and then they spread out a bit more. So while we're making all of these airplanes and shapes, they start to take shape as a sword as well. So now we got the last airplane to make, and that is gonna have the wings creating the tip of the sword. Well, the wings and the tip of the airplane creating the tip of the sword. But before we get there, let's do some finishing touches here. This airplane actually had a, I don't know, you call it a fin, or I don't know. If it was a fish, I think it would be called a fin. But yeah, the last airplane is gonna be platinum again. Some issues clipping with the cylinder, so I had to actually go around this way, and that's gonna be me checking the size of the wings of the airplane, and then I ended up thinking, no, that's too big. I'm gonna add a slope, I think, at the end there, at the tip, but as a wing itself, it was gonna end up too big. So yeah, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be tired of hearing me talking and saying check your references, making sure it's symmetrical, making sure that it looks like what you're trying to replicate. And then yeah, I think the objective here was to make it look like 3 airplanes on top of each other. The wings were supposed to be the blade, and at the same time it still looks like something that comes out of Transformers. So yeah, the airplane on the top was some other kind of hybrid between a space shuttle and an actual airplane. So it had this kind of pattern to it. And then I don't know, I somehow decided it was gonna look like a Concorde, so I put the tip of the airplane upside. And here we have the Star Saber. Again, in retrospect, I could have done it, let's say, tilted by 90 degrees, so that when you're slashing, you're actually using the edge of the sword. But as you can see, it doesn't look terrible while you're standing still. You can still appreciate the sword, and you can still kill stuff with it, so all is good. Now, the last thing that we're left to do now is the wings. And that's gonna be fairly easy. They're just triangular shaped and starting from the back. So effectively what we created earlier, there was, you know, the neck, the back area that comes up over the head. It's gonna help as, you know, the base for the wings. So here we go, and again, by now you should have heard me a few times talking about this, but building the wood structure underneath will save you a lot of time and, you know, resources. And as usual, count everything, make sure it's the same length, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. You can use that structure that you know is the length that you want, and then you can just eyeball the rest. Like in this case, I'm just dragging my blocks and starting to build what it's gonna be the top of the wing. And then I'm gonna hide all the wood away. And then I'm gonna start looking at my references to make sure that I know what this is gonna look like. The other thing is, obviously because it's in a T-pose, you're not gonna see the front of the wings, you're not gonna be able to, I don't know, decorate them or anything, but I'm not too worried about that. There is only really a decoration that I want to put on the wings, and that's the red stripe that is gonna come through. So yeah, with this I decided that's gonna be how big the wings are gonna be. I'm gonna start placing some copper, maybe. I'm also considering filling in more at the back and make it connect to what was gonna be the, let's call it the fuselage of the airplane, but again, we'll only be the ones staring at it, or at least we're gonna be the ones staring at this most of the time, so we have to be happy with it. Other people will see you from behind now and then. Oops, that's a rogue block that went not where it was supposed to go, but that was my fault. So I was saying, the back is what you're gonna stare at the most. And that's true for a lot of video games. And a lot of video games make the front look amazing, but at the back it's either boring or even ugly. So in this case, this game allows you to decorate everything about your character. So we should make sure that the back is nice looking as well. at the end of the day, I think the satisfaction increases when you add more details to your armor set. If I remember well, I actually screwed up with the proportion of one of the two wings somehow. I ended up with a wing that was longer than I wanted to be, so I had to go back and change it. And I think that's here where I made a mistake. I added the tip without adding another row. Because now that I'm adding the tip of the wing, that it's almost inverted from the rest. I then realize, oh, but where is my red line? And then it's not the same. So yeah, remove some blocks and get it fixed. Easy peasy. Cross check. Where else did we miss? That block underneath. And then finally we can work on the tip. 1, 2, 3. Slopes. And voila. Wings. So obviously real wings are not that, let's say, square. So let's use the slopes to round them up a little bit. So I ended up deciding to remove a block there. Oops, another rogue. Click. Again, repeat on the other side. Symmetry. Make sure I've done everything the same. Another funky placement. Couple more slopes. And I think we can call it a day. Or maybe not. Let's add a little bit more wing. There we go. And done. We got Starscream fully equipped with Megatron gun as a cannon and the Star Saber as a melee weapon. I hope you enjoyed your video. I enjoy making this, and come back to Discord and tell me if there is anything else you would have done different, or any opinions, or if you think this is gonna help making your set, if you want to discuss making a set and where you can get ideas or anything like that, just come and talk on Discord. Oh, I almost forgot, we need to make the fake cannons on the shoulders. They're a signature Seeker's weapon. So yeah, there is a very active community on Discord. If you're seeing this video and you don't know anything about Skullborn, or you know anything about our Discord community, I'll leave a link to the Steam page for the game and a link to Discord in the comments or in the description. Maybe better in the description. So yeah, as everything Just make sure that the proportions are what you're thinking they should be. Um, Obviously we don't have like round slopes, so I need to work with what I got and then decide, oh actually I'm gonna create an extra bulk and then finally start on the other side. Make sure that I'm using, you know, same amount of blocks. I could have saved some blocks from like the inside of that shape, but it's fine. Or maybe not now because it's only too wide, so never mind. We needed all the blocks. So here I was counting how many blocks I placed for the length of the cannon at the end, and then placing the slopes. Then where did we place the other slopes? I think there were 4 up. Here we go. And then finishing details again, making the cannons look a bit more round as much as we can. And once more, the details kinda get lost while you're editing your armor, but the moment that you finish, all the shadows of the environment will highlight all of the shapes that you put in. So there you have it. Finished that scrim. Hope you enjoyed this video. And again, come and talk to us on Discord. Come and join the playtest. You know, we can catch up later or in game. Bye.